All right, so oftentimes I'm going to post sandboxes on the website so that you can download the sandbox, you will unpack it, it will contain a bunch of files and directories. That way we can do examples where I know that you guys have exactly the same file structure as I do, right? So I can create a bunch of files and then sort of illustrate how to manipulate those files. So download and unpack the sandbox for today from the website. If you click on the website link, it is hostcat.fhsu.edu/cdclark/classes/phys213. All right, is everybody able to get to that website?
Do we open up like the Firefox one in ours, or like in the virtual machine?
In the virtual machine, you would, yeah, open up Firefox in your virtual machine. And the sandboxes are contained right here. And so there's a sandbox with today's date, 2017-1-25. It's got an extension tar.bz2. So the first thing I'm going to go through is how do we open this file up, because you're going to have to do the same thing for homework assignments. So I'll wait on you to at least get to this point here. So you click on that. It says open with or save file, just save the file. All right, we're going to open it from the command line. Looks like I've already got it in mind. All right, so while we are waiting on you to get to the website and the sandbox downloaded or plugged into power, whatever it is that you're doing currently, I want to discuss what these files are. So sandboxes, that's not a standard name. That's just what I call these directories because they're directories that we're going to play in. You play in a sandbox, so these are like a sandbox, right? The nice thing about them is you don't have to worry about deleting the stuff in those directories. You delete anything, it's not going to hurt anything in your system. As opposed to if we started going through the system files and tried to learn how to use the remove command, well, we could do danger if we did that, right? We could do harm to our system. Now, I'm not saying that you can't hurt your system while you're working in the sandbox, but it's going to be harder. So the way that we open these sandboxes are stored in an archive file, and the archive file is similar to zip files. So if you've ever downloaded a zip file and unzipped the zip file on a Windows machine, you know, it contains a bunch of files and directories. That's essentially what we have. We have an archive file, and the standard utility that's used on Unix and Linux is a program called tar. And so the archive files, instead of calling them zip files, we typically call them tarballs. So if you see people, if you're trying to read about how do you open the tar file or how do you create a tar file, a lot of times these are referred to as tarballs. The tar command is what we're going to use to untar the tarball, and the tar command will also create tarballs for us. So tar stands for tape archive. This is a old tool that is not used for its original purpose anymore. Basically, in the olden days, which apparently Gavin remembers doing in grad school, this was his job. You had a computer that you wanted to back up. You had to back it up to tape, like those spools of tape, like a cassette tape. And so the tape archive command would create a single file of a bunch of directories that could then be written to tape. And then you could get it off of the tape and restore them if you needed to. Now, all we do is we use the tar command to just create a single file that contains a bunch of files and directories. So it's an archive. There's going to be several required options that we need. You need to write this command down. Right? You're going to have to do this over and over and over again. So you need to make sure you know how to use these options. This is what's going to be required for the homework. One option that's going to be required is TACX. So the tar command is going to take a TACX option, which means extract the archive. When you create an archive, you're going to use TACC to create the archive. X means extract. We're going to use TACJ because TACJ means that the archive is not just an archive, but it's actually been compressed. So there's actually two steps that occur. One, some files or directories have been turned into a single file, which is the archive. Two, it's been compressed so that it's not as big as it normally would be, so that it's faster to transfer it over the network. And the TACJ option specifies what compression has occurred. There's two common types of compression. BZ2 is the one, or BZIP2 is the one that I use because it compresses more, right? The compression, the end result is a smaller file than the other one. You might see tar files that end with a GZ. In that case, it's gzip that has been used for the compression, and the option for gzip is tacz. So for everything that I post, tacj is the option that you're going to want to use. And then the last option that we need is tacf, and that's the name of the archive file. So the full sort of written out command would look like this. Tar is the command name, tacx is an option, tacj is an option, tacf is an option, and then this is where it's slightly confusing. This file name is an option, or excuse me, is an argument to the option. Right? We don't say that it's an argument to the tar command. And it's important to know that this file name is an optional argument. There's an option argument because F has to be the last option in this case, right? You can't just put tacj, tacf, tacx, and then give it this file name because it'll complain about not being able to find the archive file. So the file name has to come right after tacf. And again, these extensions here, so I've got .tar.bz2. That is completely arbitrary. It's only convention. It's convention to let you know that it's a tar file and that you need to use tacj when you untar it because it's been compressed, right? You wouldn't have to do that, but it's just nice to do it so that other people know how to open your file. And then there's several shorthands. So if you look up how to do this online, or maybe even in the book, I'm not sure, I haven't read the tar section in the book, you'll see things like this. The tar command with a tacxjf all bunched together, and then the name of the tar file. That is tar specific. That is not something that is supported by all commands. Basically, the tar command will read these options and see if the option contains more than one so that you don't have to give a tacx, tacj, tacf every time because it's so common to need multiple options with the tar command. And then it provides even one more level of convenience, which is really not standard, which is you can just give the option names without a tac first, and then that argument will be treated as option names, right? So you might see tar with no tac, xjf, and then the name of the file. And again, the name of the file has to come after F, so F's got to be the last option in that string, right? All of these will open up the file. So for example, this one down here, tar xfj, and the name of the tar file, that will not work. Right? That'll fail and it'll complain about not being able to find the archive file or something like that. All right, so let's download the sandbox. Has everybody got the sandbox downloaded?
Yeah.
Anybody not have the sandbox downloaded yet?
I do, but my virtual, or like, I add it to the green home, or like the home screen, and it just like knocks itself off or something.
Okay, it's probably in the downloads directory. So let's take a look and see if that's where it is. All right. All right, so
And my virtual box just like closed itself down for some reason.
all right, you gonna get that fixed? All right, I'm going to type CD just to get back into the home directory if I'm not already. If you open up a terminal, it's going to open you up in the home directory, so you wouldn't need to do this, but that's just me going to the home directory. I'm going to make a directory called sandboxes. You don't have to do this. This is just my convention. So I'm going to make a directory called sandboxes in my home directory that I will store all of my sandboxes. I'm going to go into that directory. Look to see if there's anything in there. Remember, I do this out of habit. Even if I know there's nothing in there, I often am typing ls at the command line. All right, so there's nothing in the sandbox directory. I'm going to list the contents of the downloads directory. So here I'm using the relative path, right? So from my home directory, I went down in the sandbox directory. And I know that there's also a directory called downloads in my home directory, and that's where my web browser stores files that I download. So I'm just going to list the contents of downloads, and I see that I've got 2 tarballs with today's date in there. And I've even got the homework downloaded, the homework 0 downloaded. All right, so you probably just have this one, right? This is the one that we want.
Any question?
Yeah.
What do the 2 dots mean again before download?
Dot means parent directory. So it's a relative path name, and it refers to the directory that's above current directory. All right, so to unpack the tarball, I do not have to go into the downloads directory. I don't have to move the tarball into the sandbox directory. I just have to use the relative path name to the tarball. And so I'm using the tar command. I'm extracting, so I've got TACX. It's been compressed, so I need to decompress it when I do this. So I have TACJ, and then I've got TACF, and I've got the name of the file. And I've given a relative path name to that file because that file is not in the current directory. I mean, really, if it's in the current directory and I just list the file name, that is the relative path name to the file, right? A file name with no leading slashes is just going to be assumed to be in the current directory. All right, so this is the command that will untar it. So remember, there was nothing in this sandbox directory. I've now untarred the sandbox without going into the downloads directory. And I should see a directory that appears here. Is everybody to this point? Now, I've already mentioned that the name of the tar file, the tarball, right, with the .tar.bz2 is completely conventional. It's not required. The name of the folder that just got created is also completely conventional, right? And so it's good manners, I guess, whatever you want to call it, to follow this convention so that people, if you ever have to give a tarball to somebody, they're not surprised by what comes out of it. So the convention is your tarball should contain a single directory, and that directory should have the same name as your tarball without the extension. So my tarball was 2017-01-25. .tar.bz2. When I unpack that, I get a directory that is 2017-01-25. That's not required. It doesn't force me to do that, but that's the nice thing to do to your fellow computer friends so that they know exactly what to expect and they get exactly what they expect, right? So you don't have to have the directory named the same, but you should have a single directory that your tarball unpacks to, right? It's possible to put files into a tarball, and when you untar a tarball that just has files in it, all of those files get created in the current working directory, right? If you've ever done, if you've ever opened up a zip file that doesn't have everything stored in a single directory, it just starts scattering files all over your folder, and then you have to go through and figure out, well, which files were here before I unzipped it and which files came from the zip file if you want to get rid of it. So it's just nice to make sure that everything that you put into the tarball is in its own directory. If you put all of your files in the tarball and somebody unzips it or untars it, it's usually called like a tar bomb. Like you've given a tar bomb to somebody, and it just creates a bunch of files that are all over the place, and it's just very aggravating to try to figure out what files were created. What's that? Yes, it's very similar to a glitter bomb and equally annoying.
Could you crash somebody's computer if you threw enough files in there?
No, I don't think so. No, it's just an annoyance, really. All right, so does everybody have this directory now? So this is our sandbox directory. Is everybody ready to go into the sandbox? All right, so let's go into the sandbox and see what we got. All right, so this is what you should see from the sandbox.
Would you type just the ls tac out?
I went into it with CD. So there's this command right here. And then I just ls tac l to see what's in there, right? What files are in there. So you can see that I've got several directories, and then I've got a regular file that's called, that's named README. A couple of things that I want to show you about the tar command, right? So that you can use this if you need to. One is I'm just going to delete this README file. Okay, so I'm going to delete the file that's in here. And I'm also going to delete this folder called etc, or the etc directory. Etc is a directory in on the root file system that's used to store like config files. So etc is a directory name that you're going to run into a lot if you do very much work on Linux. So I'm going to remove that directory too. Okay. And then I'm going to go back up. So I'm going to cd into the parent directory using ... And I'm going to list the contents of the sandbox, which is just ls-tackl, give it the name of the sandbox. And I see that the README file and the etc directory are gone now. If I just rerun the tar command exactly as I did before, so it's tar, tacx, tacj, tacf, give the name of the tar file, what happens is tar opens up the archive and then replaces, basically overwrites what was in there. So if I now look at what's inside the sandbox directory, I've got README and etc back. So this is nice because if you go in and you're working on a homework assignment and you accidentally delete a directory that you weren't supposed to delete, right? And it's got stuff in there that you need. You can always go back, untar again. You don't have to delete the homework directory altogether. You just need to untar it again, and it will write all of the stuff that's in that tarball into that directory. And it's sort of a mask, right? So the things that are missing get rewritten. Things that have been changed are going to get rewritten. So you're going to lose any changes to files that you put in there. But if, for example, you go in there and add a file, the addition of files will not be removed when you do a tar. So I'm going to use this. This is a command that we haven't talked about, but basically there's a command called touch that will just create a file if it doesn't exist, right? And there's, it also, if the file does exist, what it does is it updates the modified time so that you can say, without opening the file, you can say, hey, make the time that this file was modified current, because there are tools that look at the modification time to decide what to do. So this is just a command that you use to update the modified time or to just create files, empty files, right? So if I touch a file in there, I look at the contents of the sandbox directory, I now see that README is gone, and then I've got this new file that I've just created in there. And if I untar the sandbox again, which I would not have to type out every time, right? You could go up in your history, just hit the up button in your history. If I untar the sandbox again, I see that README has been replaced, but that new file that I created was already in there. And apparently I decided I wanted to quit this a little bit early. But the new file that I just created with the touch command is still in there, and the README file has been replaced. Okay, so you can always go back in there, untar on top of the sandbox to replace anything that you've deleted by accident or intentional. Any questions? All right, so that's going to be very common. I'll post these sandboxes, and we will typically, first thing is, okay, log into or go to the website, download today's sandbox so that we can follow along with today's activity. All right, so here is today's activity. I'm going to let you guys do this on your own. In the sandbox, do these tasks, right? So how many directories are there in the sandbox directory? All right, how would we figure that out? Well, we know that ls-tackl long lists the contents of a directory, and we can tell if something is a file or a directory, right? So I've got a list of things for you to work on. For the first, I don't know, I'll give you 20 minutes to work on these, just to remember some of the stuff that we've done over the last couple of days. And I am going to pause the video, so please remind me to restart the video whenever we pick back up. All right, so for homework assignments are going to consist of two parts. There's going to be a sandbox tarball, just like the sandboxes, right? So there'll be a tarball that you download, unpack. It'll have files in it for you to do something with. And then there's going to be a PDF with instructions. And then there's going to be two things that are required to complete the homework. There's going to be a Blackboard quiz, and then you're going to have to upload a version of the sandbox that you downloaded. Right? So you're going to take a quiz that'll ask questions like what command would have done task number 3. And then you'll have things that you are supposed to have done, like deleted directories or deleted files or renamed files. And you're going to tarball what you did, and you're going to upload that back to Blackboard. Now, here are the requirements, and these are strict, right? This is so that I can write scripts that will automate a lot of the stuff required for me to download your homework submission, unpack it, and then grade it. Right? And if everybody calls their file the exact same name, then it doesn't work for me. I can't store all of those in the same directory, right? So your tarball needs to be named homework-xx-username.tar.bz2. So XX is going to be the assignment number, which is basically the tarball that you download is going to be named this minus the username part. And then your username is, I don't care what it is you have as your official username on your computer. I want your username to be first initial, last name, okay? The tarball needs to contain a single directory, just like the tarballs that I give you have a single directory. They're named with the same name as the tarball. It should have a single directory that's named homework, whatever the homework number is, and your username. And then this directory should be the sandbox after you've completed the assignment. Like, for example, in the activity that we did, you were supposed to have removed these files, right? So then your sandbox is different than it was initially. You're going to tar that back up. You're going to upload it to Blackboard, and then I grade it to make sure that you did that. So to do the homework, you're going to have to download and untar the sandbox, and the homework assignments are going to show up in the homework heading here. And so I've got Module 0 tarball and Module 0 PDF. Go ahead and download the Module 0 tarball. So we're going to go through the first homework together, so we see exactly what it's going to look like. Probably don't have time to finish it today. So you're going to download that. You're going to untar it the same way that you untarred the sandbox that we just worked on. You're going to do the homework, right? If you mess anything up real bad, you can always untar it again to replace any files that you accidentally deleted. Then you're going to rename the directory, and then you're going to create a new tarball with this command. So I said that the tarball command or the tar command will both unpack and pack tarballs. So the tar command to create it is very similar to the tar command to unpack it, except instead of TACX, we use TACC for create. We're still going to use compression, so it's going to be TACJ. The file name now is the file that we want to create. So we're going to create a tarball, and we're going to give it the name of the tarball that we want to create. And we're going to put .tar.bz2 on there just to indicate that this is a tarball and it's been compressed. And then the argument to the command is the things that you want to put into the tarball, and we only want to put one directory into the tarball, right? So this is the command that will create the tarball. Then you need to take the Blackboard quiz, and then you need to upload the tarball to Blackboard. All right, so let's go to the homework. You click on this, you download it, you click on the PDF, you get a listing of the things that we're supposed to be doing. Right, this one's fairly short. It says the sandbox directory contains a directory named config. Go into this directory. All right, so let me get ready to do my homework.
CD. Yeah, CD.
Yeah, CD with no arguments will go straight to your home directory, which is what I'm doing. All right, I'm going to make a directory called homework. You can name it whatever you want. I'm going to go into that directory. I'm going to check to see what's in the downloads directory. There's my homework file. So I would expect this tarball to contain one directory named hwtac00. And I'm going to untar that. So X for extract, J for decompress, F for the file that I'm going to be doing this to. And there's my homework directory. So same thing as before, right? The homework's going to be very similar to the activities that we do in class. So I'm going to go into this. I'm just going to sort of look around to see what I got. All right, I got two directories in here. So let's go back to the instructions and see what it's telling me to do. Sandbox directory contains a directory named config. Go into this directory. All right, so then it's going to ask me a couple questions. How many files are in this directory? How many directories, well, whatever that word is that I misspelled, are in this directory? All right, so I'm going to go into the config directory. I'm going to list out the contents of this directory. That's going to allow me to count the number of files. All right, so 4 is the number of files. I'm going to write that down just so that I don't forget it. Number of files is 4. That's the kind of information that's probably going to be asked on the quiz. So there's 4 files. This is 1A. Yeah. We're going to do the quiz together. Yeah. Let's see here. Yeah, go ahead and write it down. This is good practice. I don't want to discourage you from doing the right thing. Then the next question was, how many directories are there? Well, the same command will give me that. There's 2 directories. Okay. Next part says, this directory contains a directory named physical quantities. Determine how many files are in this subdirectory without going into that directory. All right, so this is similar to one that we had to do on the activity today. So the ls command takes arguments. If I give it arguments, it will list the arguments. If those arguments are directories, it'll list the contents of the directories. So I'm going to list the contents of physical quantities, and I see that there are 3 files and 1 directory in there. And the last part says to remove the models directory. Okay, so there must be a directory named models in here. I'm going to remove that. And I'm going to check that that actually worked. All right, good. Okay, so here's the models directory, and now it's gone. All right, so I've done the homework. I'm going to write down the information that asks some questions, and I'm going to pay attention to the commands that I use to do those, because the homework quizzes are going to ask things like, which of these commands would have done what you were required to do in problem number 1B, for example. All right, so now I'm going to go up outside of the homework directory, and I'm going to create the tarball that I'm going to submit, right? So here's my directory that I did my homework in. First thing I need to do is I need to rename it, and I rename it with the move command. So the move command takes an argument, and it moves it to the second argument. So I've got a directory named homework-00, and I'm going to add my username to that. Okay, so I've created the directory to submit. I want to create a tarball of this directory. TAC-C, TAC-J, TAC-F. File name is going to have tar.bz2 on the end of it. And then I'm going to add the directory that I just created. Notice that the directory that I created this from is not removed, right? If I realize I did something wrong, I can always make modifications and then retar it and create a new tarball. And this tarball right here is the file that you're going to upload to Blackboard, okay? So that's the file that you'll actually upload to Blackboard that will get downloaded and graded. All right, so tomorrow or Friday, once we start, we're going to go through how to access the quiz and how to upload the tarball, and then I'll discuss how I'm going to be grading those tarballs so that you know what's going to happen whenever you submit something, how it'll be graded. All right, that's all for today. Any questions, Corey?
How do you upload it to Blackboard like usual?